I try where possible to try to convey if there's any one message that I convey other than, cleanliness and hygiene, it is that there's hope, that there's possibility, that things can work out, that we can achieve, that you can fight City Hall and win, that those who say that you cannot do something are wrong. You must not surrender to the tyranny of reasonable voices who say to you, don't put yourself out there, don't try, don't embarrass yourself, don't pursue your dreams. Just be good, be quiet, be a machine, work in the cubicle for a faceless master on a distant mountaintop. And those voices are wrong, they say you can't do something. And see, I was born in Jersey, actually. Who the hell would applaud for Jersey? What's wrong with you people?
As long as you're not Newark.
What? Well, I was born in Patterson and lived quite a while in Newark. And if you know Newark, back in the 60s and 70s, it was not a pleasant place to be in. And everyone assumed that you're going to just either be in jail the rest of your life or working as a mechanic. And I would tell people at this size, what are you going to be when you grow up? I'll be a writer. People like you don't become writers. This is not the neighborhood where writers come from. They're guys who go to great schools and have patches on the elbows of their jackets, And it was a fight every step of the way. And I was at a convention a few years ago in San Diego, and some woman came up to me and said, I want to thank you for what you say about your work, because I realized that if you can do it, anybody can do it. But I know what she meant. I see her pulling back the words as she said them. Shit. But it's true. What I do is not impossible. I come from the ranks of fans. I was as rank as anybody. And there are a lot of folks in this room who want to be writers and artists and particle physicists and so on, and pursue those things. It's never too late to become what you're always meant to be in the first place. And I really believe that. And I fought my whole life to do that and to talk about that. So I encourage all of you, don't surrender to the tyranny of reasonable voices. That's all I ask. Sir.
Thank you for Babylon 5, especially. It asked questions, which is so important. And
where's the bathroom?
Who are you? What do you want?
Where do you change for 20 after 10 o'clock at night?
Yeah, all those. Some of the answers that I came up with are why I'm still teaching elementary school all this time later. So thank you. I was wondering if you watched Battlestar Galactica, because that also asks questions, and it seems to have a similar voice. Different but similar? I don't know how to describe it exactly.
For whatever reason, I never got a chance to really check out the show. I was always working, doing one thing or the other, and I would tell myself, remember to watch this episode. I put it on the DVR and forget to watch it. And I did finally watch the last episode. And I was like, oh. But, so I'm sure that if I'd seen the rest of the show, it would make a lot more sense to me.
P5 rules.
Ron Moore is a great writer. He's and a nice guy, by the way.
But you're a better writer.
Oh, shush. Joe, you suck.
No, I don't think so.
So I really don't have an informed opinion.
That's cool.
Therefore, my opinion is basically full of shit. So I actually have the box set on order. I'm going to pick it up at some point so I can, at that point, watch it and actually have an opinion. So I can't answer your question.
But thank you for asking questions in your work.
Thank you.
Hello, here we are. There you are. This is, thanks. First of all, I want to say you're doing a great job on Superman and Wonder Woman. As a reader, you brought me back to those characters after probably 20 years away. And as a manager of a comic book store, you increased sales 3 to 5-fold, so thanks for that too.
So what should you owe me money?
Maybe you. And also I wanted to say that the Brave and the Bold issue of Aquaman and Demon, I think, is probably the highlight of the DC run so far.
Thank you.
Which I'm very sad to see that book, I guess, is terminated now.
No. It's just, what happened was, this is going to be a long departure, so bear with me.
That's fine.
For the last 2 years plus, I've been fighting this ongoing series of lung problems. And it would knock me out. It started from recurring cold to cold flu-like symptoms to walking pneumonia to lung infection, lung inflammation, and then bronchitis. Every 3-4 months I would get hammered. And we couldn't figure out what it was, and if it kept on going, it was going to become chronic bronchitis. And they hammered it with every antibiotic known to modern science. And finally we've beaten the goddamn thing. But because of these constant recurring problems every 3-4 months, I kept falling further and further behind. And they said, look, what's important, that's Superman and Wonder Woman. Get those back on schedule first, and then we'll dive back into Brave and the Bold. So right now I'm working on the Lois Lane and Adam Strange issue as I speak to you right now. Well, not technically speaking, as I'm not the keyboard right now, but it's in my head and head. And so that is the first up is Lois Lane, Adam Strange, and then we do Supergirl and Phantom Stranger.
Yeah, because there is news on the net that it's been canceled, so
No.
I want to fight that.
The nets are wrong. What are the odds?
That's why I'm asking the question. And the other quick thing, kind of already answered it with the news about B5 and the movement in the tall grass. But when you came over to DC, being all under the same umbrella, did you ever give any consideration to trying to do another B5 comic or graphic novel? Especially maybe an adaptation of the proposed Harlan Ellison story with a sequel to the movie Last Hand.
No talk about that at the moment. So, afraid not.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Joe.
Howdy.
Longtime fan of your work.
Thank you.
Of the things you're trying
You're too young to be a long time fan.
What was I going to say?
Job well done. Yes.
No, until the mention of the movement in the tall grass, the thing you were working on that I was most excited about was the World War Z adaptation.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could speak to how you adapted it from the novelization to screenplay.
Again, I'm not sure what will remain of this, but what I did in my series of drafts was, have you read the World War Z book? For those who have not, it is an after-action report, for lack of a better term. It's now a few years after the zombie attack killed like half the planet off, and someone says, okay, let's figure out what went wrong and who didn't connect the dots and why did it spread so fast. It was a UN report about what happened. And there's no main character, there's no narrative structure other than a series of interviews. So I thought, well, hell, somebody had to do those interviews. So let's do a story about the writing of the book. So I created a UN investigator plus his family. We see what happened to them during the war as our sort of narrative through line, which we flash back to see what happened to him and his kids. And then we follow him as he goes from place to place, interviewing those, and we see flashbacks through their eyes. So we get to see, the zombies in the harbor as the evacuation of India, trying to get out of there and being swamped by the boats and all the rest of it. And just imagine writing a scene where exterior beach, India, and we see 10,000 zombies cresting over a hill, and coming down into the shore where there are thousands of refugees frantically trying to get into the water, to the boats, and being swamped, and I'm under the water grabbing and pulling you down. So it's a light comedy. With some musical numbers.
Awesome.
Not quite as good as Zorro.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Hi, Joe.
Okay.
Got into your work from B5, loved it.
Thank you.
What made you go from working on television, cartoons, and live action to comics? How were you able to do it, I want to say smoothly, so well? Because it's not very often you see a lot of TV writers go from TV to comics and make that connection work.
I like to fail upward. I go where the fun is. I go where the story is. I worked in television nonstop for over 20 years. And the last one I did was Jeremiah, which was the sound of one fan clapping. And while we were able to tell some good stories with that, and there were some things positive that came out of it, it was the most nightmarish experience of my career. And it was 2 years trapped in a metal drum with someone banging on it. That was what it was. And when I finished it, I thought, I need a break. I need to get away from television. And I've always believed in the notion of doing that which scares you, doing that which you haven't done before, and taking risks. That goes back to the thing about the tyranny of reasonable voices. You have to challenge yourself. You have to take chances. You have to do things that you haven't done before, and risk failure. As the military points out, the only way you know where the wall is to try and go beyond it. Failure, according to the military, is an important part of the process. If you don't fail once in a while, you're doing it wrong. So I thought, okay, what have I not failed at? There's so much left at that point. Well, I haven't done a real honest-to-God motion picture. I've done TV movies and that sort of thing, but I have not actually written a full-length motion picture. And I knew this story. I tried to write it years before, couldn't make it come together in my head. Tried one more time, and I wrote Changeling. And got it to my agent, and he got it to Ron Howard, who bought it like overnight. Then they brought in Clint Eastwood, who came on like overnight, and then Angelina. And suddenly I went from being a TV writer who no one in the film world knew about at all to, quote, an A-list writer. And I had all these meetings with the studio guys afterward, you know, and who wanted to talk to me about doing work for them. And they were all like, where did you come from? Literally, where'd you learn to write like that? You know? And it really was a transformational experience in every sense. The word Changeling was what got me into being almost a full-time feature film writer. And it's such a weird world. It's such an uncommon world. I used to think in television I knew what the money truck was. No. Now I know what the money truck is. And just back it up. You know, the beeps, they back it up and just shovel it out. You know? I was in Cannes for the premiere of Changeling. And we're going to have dinner before the premiere. Me and Angie and Brett. Me and those who also helped make the film. It sounds stupid. I feel like embarrassed. So I'm getting ready to go down, and they call up from downstairs to say, Mick Jagger was staying at the same hotel. Would like to join us for dinner. Is it okay? Very nice table manners. Woman who was with him was like this much taller than he was. It was quite astonishing. I got one blurry iPhone photo, I think like this, you know. And on the day of the premiere, they bring in these black cars to the streets of France with cops in front of you and behind you, and usually the cops are behind me, it's a bad thing. You know? Blown to the streets of France, and you get there and you come out, and there's thousands of photographers just taking pictures of the people in front of you. So it's such an uncommon experience for me, and because I come from television, because I come from New Jersey, you know, I can step back and look at it objectively. You know, I'm among them, but not of them. And so it's like a great, you know, sociology experiment. But to answer your question, I always try and take a chance. My first animation script I ever sold, I wrote on spec and sent it off, and God knows why they bought the goddamn thing, and then they put me on staff, and that was 20 years of television. You know, I think it's really important to try things. I have a friend who, again, worked for the state of California for, as I mentioned before, a faceless master on a distant mountaintop. And she called one day and said, you know, I'm depressed. I've been 30 years in this job, and there's nothing of me in here. And I'm going to be 50 soon, and what is there of me? And I've never done what I wanted to do. And I said, well, what do you want to do? That's a good place to start. And she said, well, what are your passions? Well, I like my cats. Good start. What else? Well, I like taking pictures because, you know, I'm not a professional, but I like taking pictures. Why don't you take pictures of people's pets, people's cats and dogs, and make that little sideline business? So, well, I could never. Why not? Try it. She now works 3 days a week for a faceless master on distant mountaintop, and 2 days a week doing what she loves to do, taking pictures of kitties and doggies. And by this time next year, it'll be 5 days a week. It is not too late. That's the message. That's what you hold on to. Never too late to become what you're meant to be in the first place.